I'm Steve McShane.
And I'm Maya Carroll.
Welcome to this edition of Begin in the Garden.
In this next half hour, Steve will channel his inner Mr. Wizard and tell us about science tips that every gardener should know.
Then you'll meet some amazing school kids that have taken a school garden to learn all about science, nature, and a whole lot more.
And after all that brain work, you're going to need a snack. In our Garden to Grill segment, Supervisor Jane Parker will whip up a new look at an old favorite.
That's all coming up next
in Begin the Garden.
Hi, Steve McShane here with a word or two on how plants help our environment. A lot of people have the misconception that plants just sit there and do little for us. The reality of it is, without greenery on this planet, we would die. It's that simple. You see, the way plants are set up is they're planted inside the soil, and as they suck nutrients and water through capillary action, they actually transpire and breathe into the atmosphere. Thanks to something called photosynthesis, the nutrients that are present in the soil, oxygen and carbon dioxide, other gases as well, are assimilated into the tissue of the plant, regurgitated, and sent back out into the atmosphere as oxygen that we can survive on. That's the beauty about a plant like this. Putting more greenery in your home or in your yard actually helps the environment. That's why we're striving in the Monterey County to be a county of trees and greenery. The more greenery we can put in our lives, the more joy it brings to our family, our friends, and to the environment. NASA actually did a study years back on identifying the benefit of plants in their ability to not only bring oxygen to our environment, but to reduce some of the things in our air that we may not even be aware of. VOCs, they call them. The reality is some plants are easier to grow and do a better job for us. I've got some of my favorites right here. This is a rubber plant. Look at that nice chocolate color. Very good for shady environments and withstands a lot of pressure when it comes to forgetting to water it. Another winner is this one right here. This is the Dracaena. Beautiful. Some people call it a cornstalk plant. Grows rapidly, upright, evergreen, and boy, I'll tell you, it can handle a lot of the stresses of an indoor environment, whether it be dogs and children or, again, forgetting to water it. One of the most effective for purifying your air, listed in the top 10 by NASA, is this Spathia Phylum right here. Beautiful white flower, and over time identified to make your home or office a better place for you and your family. Consider a houseplant. Remember, dress it in a nice pot, maybe even top dress with a little bit of mulch or some moss to conserve water, and don't forget to feed it. A nice organic fertilizer once a quarter will go a long way to keeping it green, healthy, and doing that job to purify your air for you.
When school is in session at Rose Ferraro School in Soledad, you'll find some classrooms in the garden, the school garden. Let's take a look at an innovative approach to learning where dirt is definitely on the menu.
I like to pull out the weeds and pick out the flowers and I pick up the potatoes and plant them.
There are so many academic enrichment possibilities. Writing about the garden, the adjectives you use to describe the plants, the colors, the shapes, the patterns they see. The science that's involved, germination, the life cycle. First grade reads about Johnny Appleseed, so we have many apple trees. We get to see the blooms in the spring and all the way through to the apples in the fall, and they get to eat them. The interconnectedness of the plants and the animals. Some are so afraid of bees, and even butterflies make them jumpy and nervous, some of the kids at first. And we talk about how they're beneficial, we need them, and how snails are so cute, but they're not very good for the garden. They love to hold those snails, and I told them, I'm sorry, but you have to say, sorry snail, you can't live here.
Little snails, but we step the snails because they don't belong in gardens.
When I say we're going to go out and work in the garden, they all cheer. and they like putting things in pots and growing them, and we've grown things in plastic bags in the window and then transplanted them.
I like to take out the plants and like to dig. You get seeds and you plant it in the soil.
And then what happens?
It grows in spring.
When we harvest the things from the garden, we talk about how those things are healthy, and that the fact that we've grown them ourselves and know that we haven't put anything on them that might make us sick. You know, we know where they grew, and so yeah, it's good to talk about it. And actually, I see some kids when we go through the lunch line, they start to get more salad out of the salad area, and since we grow a lot of tomatoes out here, they tend to put more tomatoes in their salad too.
Tomatoes, vegetables, and apples.
Our garden is as old as the school. We began in the spring of the first year of Rose Ferrero when it was founded. We had 4-H help getting the big tires. We had a rural grant. We had $2,000 rural grant that we spent about $1,000 on infrastructure and about $1,000 on plants initially. We had high school help, service hours at the very beginning too. And we've had lots and lots of parents over the years help us out. You take some of these little seeds, see how they come out like that? Did you guys get some?
This pomegranate tastes sour.
We talk about nutrition, freshness of produce. Many parents work in the produce, but the kids often don't even know, oh, that's a tomato. You're supposed to pick it red? They're picking all the green ones. So it's definitely a teaching tool, all sorts. I've tried to have plants that are early in the spring, colorful in the fall, so that it's a whole year's experience. I mean, it's my heart. I was brought up on a prune orchard in San Jose, so we're growers. My family are growers, so yeah, and the kids just so much enjoy it. Their joy makes it worthwhile. Sometimes it's hot or cold or whatever, and it makes it worthwhile.
Happy! Yeah, super happy. Yeah.
As gardening grows in greater popularity, there's a million community events out there that do a lot for helping us be better gardeners. The Smart Garden Fair is one of those great examples. Learn a little bit more as we investigate this fair and grow our gardening ability.
The fair started 4 years ago, and it was when Tom and I went down to Ellery Middlebrook, and she had a little garden fest, and we thought, wow, what a great idea. We could do it much bigger here at Sky Park. So that's what we started. We invited her. We said, well, if we expand it, can we have it here, and would you like to be our guest speaker? And she said yes. So that was the beginning of it 4 years ago. The main purpose of this fair is giving back to the community better gardening practices. That's what the Master Gardeners is all about, and that's our mission. This year is the focus on food, and everybody's, using their land as much as possible and bringing the animals back onto the land. All the cities have city ordinances, and chickens are allowed. The roosters, not so much because they make too much noise, but you can have little chickens, and they provide fertilizer and lots of eggs. Well, I'm holding Rosie. And
your favorite?
My favorite, and that's Mary, named after Mary Blessing. Who do you have?
This is Fluffy. The first contest I put her in, actually the only contest I put her in, she won me 3 ribbons and $10.
And that one is Tiny.
Yeah.
Yep. And she is probably the most gentle of all the bantams.
Except mine. Mine's really gentle as well.
And there's more than just chickens in 4-H. You can actually do things like crafts, and there's livestock projects, like we have steers and goats and sheep and swine, and all those things have got fertilizer that's good for your garden, and it's fun to raise them. It's a great leadership experience, and kids get to learn good values, and it's just an excellent experience. Especially in 4-H, you can learn leadership and helping with other people and presentations and public speaking, so many different things you can do.
Nancy Martella knows firsthand the importance of careful use of chemicals in the garden. Let's meet this retired county environmental specialist and find out how she makes her garden safe for both people and the environment.
My last job was as an environmental specialist for the County of Monterey. I worked in the section that regulated small water systems. Such as the one that I live on here. I live out in the country. We share a well with about 50 of our neighbors. And so the county regulates those water systems based on the laws passed by the state of California. My work with the county just built upon my experiences in other jobs that I've had in the past, in the sense that I like to keep my garden free of chemicals if I can, in order to protect the environment, specifically the groundwater. Since I do live on a private well now, it's of a higher priority in my mind. But also, I understand the importance of keeping your garden chemical free if possible, so that the good insects, which you have in your garden, can play their part in controlling the bad insects. I think a lot of people just immediately might go to a chemical spray to get rid of insects, not realizing that they may be killing the beneficial insects also. I went through the Master Gardener program a couple of years ago, and we talked a lot about integrated pest management, which is just the use of several different methods of controlling insects, with an emphasis on those that are least hazardous to the environment. And so, for instance, one of the first lines of defense might be if you have, for instance, I had aphids in one of my apple trees. Just using a blast of water to remove the insects from the leaves might be all that's needed to get them out of your tree. And usually they won't come back. They can't find their way back. So that would be one of the least environmentally harmful things that you could do to protect your trees from aphids, for instance. The Master Gardeners are present at the hotline Monday through, I guess it's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 9 through noon. You can call in, ask questions. You can bring in samples of a plant material that may have a disease or a pest on it, and they can help you identify it and determine what's the best way to deal with it. Another resource is the UC Davis has a website which is a wealth of information about anything you might want to know about your garden, production of plants, pest control. It's a vast amount of information, so that website is also available to the public. If you look in the newspaper, every weekend there's more than one event being held by a local organization that's trying to promote green whatever, green building, green gardening. And I think that these organizations are playing a very valuable part in educating the public about what is going onto the ground and could therefore trickle down to the groundwater. If anyone doesn't know how to go about finding something that is more beneficial to their garden and to the earth, if you will, all you have to do is to go into a reputable gardening center and ask them, and they will be glad to help you find an organic, if you will, or less harmful approach to pest control or disease control. There are a lot of beneficial insects in your garden which will help you to control the more harmful insects. That's one benefit of not using a chemical. In my work with the county, I dealt a lot with groundwater contamination, of which we don't have very much here in Monterey County, but, and I'm speaking mostly of chemical contamination. We do have nitrate contamination in the northern part of the county, which I'm sure everyone is aware of, and I think that's probably brought or heightened a lot of people's awareness about things like that. But you have to consider that anything that you might spray in your garden, eventually it will land on the ground, it will eventually trickle down to the groundwater, and it could affect your drinking water source. So I think it behooves everyone to keep that in the back of their mind when they're thinking about what they're going to use in their garden.
In our cooking segment, Supervisor Jane Parker adds a new twist to an old favorite as one of our guest celebrity chefs.
Hello, my name's Jane Parker. You may know me as a county supervisor, but I am also someone who loves to cook. I was trained as a chef at a cooking school in France and developed a whole specialty actually of healthy meal preparation. Today what we're going to do is play around with a very simple meal. It's going to be chicken and rice and a vegetable. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how to have fun with that very basic, hearty kind of meal using ingredients from the garden. So I'm going to start with the chicken. I actually like to have the fat stay on the chicken for two reasons. One is I just love the flavor that it gets a little bit browned and crispy in the oven. But also I think it's kind of a holdover from my French cooking tradition where there's a long history of using fats of various kinds and infusing them with flavors of other ingredients. But another thing that's fun to do is to pop a little sprig of oregano under the skin, between the skin and the flesh. I'm going to put some oregano under here, and then if you like, you can also put some garlic. I'm a big fan of garlic. So once you have the skin off the garlic, helped by a hefty little blow of the knife, then I just chop it into some slices, big, small, indifferent, and also just pop a slice or two, as many as you think will be sufficient for you and your family, right in under the skin with the herbs. So once you've done the stuffing that you want, arrange the thighs in the pan. A good rule of thumb is to have the fattest of them or the fattest sides towards the outside of the pan, because things tend to cook a little faster around the outside. A little salt and pepper is a good thing. And if you like, you can sprinkle some more herbs over the top, which I think I'll do in this case, and then this can pop into the oven. Thighs cook. If you put them into a 350-degree oven, they should be done in about 45 to 50 minutes. So this is actually a great meal to do if you want to have something ready to eat in an hour. To play with our garden theme, I thought that it would be fun to add some corn to the rice once it's done cooking. And one thing I really enjoy doing with corn is roasting it. We're going to roast this corn under the broiler. What that will mean is just popping it in under the heat element and then keeping an eye on it, again, just to keep it turning. As many of you know, if you do grow your own vegetables, there is something so tasty about the vegetables that are grown and picked, and you bring them in and you just can prepare them so simply, and they taste great. Okay, the water's boiling for the green beans. We'll pop them in. They only take, depends how cooked you like them, but they really only take about 3 to 5 minutes to cook. So once they're in, you want to keep a pretty close eye on them. Okay, so let's see how we're doing on the corn. It's like we're starting to get a little color. Using a broiler like this, you get more of a golden color, which is fine. When you do it on the open flame or on the barbecue, you can also use your barbecuing skills for this. It will get a little bit more charred. Back to our garden theme. One of the things that's fun to do with lemons and limes, which can be a pretty constant cycling through from the garden, is to use them as real contrasts and complements to your flavors. The chicken has been in the oven for about 35 minutes or so, and so it is ready to get the squeeze of lime. So I will get the chicken. You can see that the chicken is starting to get golden color on its skin. Ultimately, it will be quite brown, and it will be gorgeous and yummy. And there we are. Just dripping that sweet juice onto the chicken now in the heat of the oven will help really increase the golden brown color. And now, of course, we've got the lime juice sitting underneath the chicken, so it'll start infusing both from the top and from the bottom. So you'll see that the corn is kind of dappled. It's not all golden, all charred, but enough that you're going to get that sensation, that flavor. So to cut the corn off the cob, get a grip with your oven mitt. And basically, you're just angling the knife down and a little bit inward on the cob, and it just the kernels just kind of pop away. So now the rice has its addition of corn just to keep it a little bit interesting. The next thing, depending on your tastes and what you want to do. I find I like to jazz rice up a little bit, so I'm going to add, since oregano is our herbal theme, I'm going to just chop a little bit of this oregano up and pop it into the rice. But the real wake up in the rice is going to be the zest of lime. Looks pretty tasty. And of course, one thing I love to do is see if I can get some of this juice that's been sitting here. Spoon that over. And of course, this has our lime juice. I almost feel like I can see lime color. Yum. All right, so let's serve. So, pop a piece of chicken there. You can see how golden brown the skin got. Whee! Little rice with that corn in there makes a nice color. And I'm just going to sprinkle the zest on the top. And I'm also going to sprinkle a little on the chicken just for fun. Whoop. And then green beans. It's an elegant serving technique to just pour the food onto the plate. And there we are, fresh from the garden. So here it is, chicken and rice with a little difference, thanks to our garden.
Thanks for joining us.
See you next time on Begin in the Garden.